Welcome back, this is the Clay Golem. We're back in Foundry VTT and we're looking at our Stormwreck Cove series where we are building using Foundry VTT version 11. We're building the Stormwreck Cove adventure. We're not using any add-ons or any mods of any description because we want to use just the base package to see what we can do. We're starting to encounter a couple of little places where we can absolutely see the advantage of using some of the add-ons. But we're going to do our best before we resort to doing that and make our life easier. So we are doing it the hard way. And we're here to learn. So we have finished doing the compass rose. And last video we were in Seagrow Caves and we were adding a few extra bits. Now we started looking at adding monsters. We pulled them in and added them where we could, but we didn't have all the monsters we needed to. Save a bit of time and not to bore you with going through repeatedly, I have gone and created a bunch of the creatures that we needed for this particular map and these encounters, and I've pre-populated them on there, and I've deliberately chosen to put on their health bars because this is a dark cave. It just makes it a bit easier to see where they are. So I've added on, for example, I've added on the spore servant octopus. I've put the sturges in. I've added in the violet fungus, and I've added in the adults of the myconoids. So if I just double click, they're all named as well because they all have distinct roles within here. So all of those adults are added in, including some of the leaders in here as well. There's one that I've not added the health bar onto, so let's do that now. Just double right click brings us into the token configuration. I am having them as the name comes up when I hover over them, just to help me remember which one is which. But under resources, where we've got display bars, I'm just going to always for owner, and you can see that's what brings up that bar. Because yeah, some of these tokens aren't very bright because it's a very dim cave. So I've just added that in to make it easier for me to see where they are and for you guys to see as well. So over in this area, in the crystal cave here, I've added a few more lights. There's some purple glowing crystals in and around here. And I've added in the fume drakes. And I've also added in the constrictor snake. And somewhere in here, I added in... Where is it? Maybe I didn't add that in yet. I thought I had, but there is a fire snake. No, not the fire snake. There's something else in here, I thought. Oh, it's called... It is the fire snake. It's called constrictor snake because I haven't... the token hasn't updated the name. How interesting. So let's see if we can... Yeah, it says constrictor snake there. So we should be able to change that token name to fire snake. That makes a lot more sense. Now when I hover over it, it's giving me the correct name. That was confusing. Thought I'm sure I put that in, but that's why I was getting confusion. So we can do that with any of these. So if I double click on this, we can see this one is called Kraz. Again, what we can do is we can open the token and actually change the names of the token itself to Kraz. So now when we hover over, it says it's Kraz. So that's something I will do. Not going to do them all right now because that's really boring for you guys to watch. What I didn't add in is the myconoid sprouts, so the young ones. If you recall all the way back in the adventure, it talks about there being the two adults, Kraz and his friend up here, and down below, down somewhere in this area, there are two adolescents known as sprouts. Now you can see I've got my right hand pane on here. I've got all of these creatures set up that I've done. And under NPCs, I've got my myconoid adults and I've got my sprouts. But I haven't finished doing the sprouts, so I thought we would do that together as part of this. So if I double click on here, it's going to bring up this blank sheet. So I haven't done anything with this yet. Because I wanted to do that together. So all I can do is I've got up in the other screen, I've got all of the stats for these, and I can literally just go through and update all of these stats to represent what this this creature, this sprout in this instance, actually has. There's a total of 7 health, so make sure that's there. and it has a natural armor class of 10, so that's fine. And I do need to change its movement, so its movement speed is only 10. These things are very slow and they don't fly or anything like that at all. Now, what they do have senses, they have dark vision. So here under senses, not sure if you can see that, it's quite small. I can click on this cog and I can configure and say, actually, they have 120 feet, units of feet here, and put that in. So we now know that this is going to be able to see in dark vision. And of course, if you were doing this for a player character, that is the same place you would be able to do that to show that they've got dark vision. But I think you have to update the token as well to show that they can see in dark vision, so it doesn't automatically pull from here. I could be wrong, but I'm fairly sure when I had a play around before, it doesn't automatically do that. We would need to update the token, but we'll find out. We will get to that. What else do they have? So challenge rating is basically 0, which is interesting. So you don't get anything for killing these fungus children, which is, you know, probably fair. And it does have a range of abilities. So under features, we need to add distress spores, sun sickness, and then we need to add some actions of its fist attack and rapport spores that it has. So there's a couple of different ways that you potentially can do that, which is you could create those as special abilities and then drag them in to your individual creatures. So we've got the SRD content here, and we could go to monsters, we could go to monster features, and we could see if any of those features are in here already. So the first one is distress spores, unlikely to be in here. Disrupt life is the closest we're going to get. Sun sickness. Now we didn't find sun sickness, but we found something else that was very, very similar to that. A sunlight sensitivity. And if we click on that, so while in sunlight, the creature has disadvantage on attack rolls as well as on wisdom perception checks. Now looking at sun sickness in the module, that's for the Stormwreck Isles, it says, while in sunlight, the myconoid has disadvantage on ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. So that's kind of similar, although it includes skill checks and saving throws. So what we could do is we could choose to just edit this, and let me edit it. Got to click on the edit twice. On attack rolls, skill checks, and saving throws, as well as on wisdom perception checks, so we can leave that extra bit in. All right, so we can close that. So we've just edited this to make sure that when we look at this, it's going to say the right thing. And in fact, we could even update that sunlight sensitivity to call it sun sickness, so that we know exactly what we're looking at. So that's one easy way to do it, but we don't have distress spores in here or anything like that. So we're going to have to create a completely new one. So under features, I'm going to click add, and you can see it straight away. It's given me new feature here without a name or anything. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to call it distress spores. If I can type spores, apparently I still can't type. So distress spores, when the myconoid takes damage, all other myconoids within 240 feet can sense its pain. So I'm just literally going to copy and paste that direct from the module. And then you can see we've got that right there. So there's lots and lots of add-ons we can use to help integrate a lot of these abilities and things, but we're not using add-ons. So we're going to be doing it the old way. So I'm going to need that description there when I'm running the game to be able to say, right, okay, what happens when? And I'm going to have that as a reminder, because that will, you know, that will be something that I'll need to just remember I need to sort out. Okay, let's just close those two up for neatness. We now need to add on the attack. We can get rid of this monster feature. I suspect it's not going to have fist as an attack on there. Okay, so let's get rid of that and tidy ourselves up a little bit. All right, so under attacks, we're going to click add, just like we did, and we've got new weapon, just like we did with new feature, and we can edit this, and we can just call it a name. So we're going to call it fist, obviously, and we don't need to put a description in. We can pretty much work out what a fist attack is going to be. But if we go to details, this is where we can start turning this this thing into an actual attack that we can roll dice against. So as you can see, we've got a whole number of items here. We don't need this. It is a natural weapon, but we're going to choose weapon type. So weapon type is natural. You can see we can choose from martial, melee, simple, ranged, improvised, etc. But this is a natural attack. We don't have a based weapon to put it off of. Attunement's not required, and proficiency, it's automatically going to be proficient. It's always going to be equipped, and obviously it's always going to be identified. Now I think that identified tag probably only makes a difference if they pick up an item such as a magic sword and they're attacking with it, but without it being identified they don't get those extra benefits. So leaving that unticked would mean automatically those benefits wouldn't be applied if we were using add-ons and things. Irrelevant for this, effectively it's identified. Now, are there any special properties of it? Is it made of adamantium? Is it light? Is it magical, etc.? We don't need any of those because it's just a fist attack, and you certainly can't throw your fist, not in this. Weapon usage, so activation cost. What is it to use this? It is one action, so we're going to select action and say 1. We don't need a condition. What do we target? So we could say, you know, target an enemy, but actually we can just say target a creature. Okay, so it's only going to target one creature. Just double checking. Yep, so it's a melee weapon attack. We've got it as a natural attack rather than a melee weapon, but that's the same thing. The range of it is... So it's not a missile weapon, so I don't think we need to put that in at all. Duration doesn't have that limited. No, it doesn't have resource consumption at all. You don't run out of hands. Okay, so that's the basic setup. It's going to cost 1 action to do it, and we can target 1 creature at a time. Now, right at the bottom here for weapon attack, you can see we've got an activation type, and this is where we can say this is a melee weapon attack rather than anything else. Ability modifier. Now it gets +1 to attack because this is a strength based. So we've got a proficiency bonus of +2, but we put in a strength of 8, which gives us a -1. So obviously the difference between those is the +1 that matches with what the module says it should be. Obviously it's your game. If you want to make them stronger, weaker, whatever you want to do, entirely up to you. You could run this same adventure for 5th level characters, and you would, could just bump up all the monsters and make them much more balanced. This is designed for 1st level characters walking in here, so we don't want to mess with that. We want to try and keep it balanced for them. Do they get an attack roll bonus on top of that +1 we've already calculated? The answer is no. So we don't want to make the mistake of putting +1 in here, or otherwise it will do strength -1. And then it will do proficiency bonus +2 to give us a +1, and then it will give us another +1 in here. But we literally can type in +1, it might have -1, or whatever it is that's going to come out on the roll. So we can literally do that. It's nice and easy. Critical threat threshold, so it crits on a 20 only. Obviously some things crit on a 19 or even an 18. Does it do extra damage when it crits? Nope, not for us. But here we can put in what the damage formula is. So just click in this little plus on there. I'm not sure if you saw that, where it says damage formula. We go over to the right hand side, there's a little plus. If we click down on there, this is where we're going to put in what the damage is. So for this thing, it is a measly 1d4. And it's a 1d4 -1. So we've got that -1 from our strength, which is why this is -1. So we can either put that in like this, which will be correct because of that's the way the strength is done, or we can do plus at mod. Is that right? Is it mod? I think it's mod. I think we covered that before. So it will add on the relevant modifier, and we've already told it the relevant modifier is strength, so it will take that 1 off for us. Okay, so that is basically for this creature, it says the same. Now the reason why this is the better way to do it is, let's say this this sprout, somehow somebody cast a spell on it or something that made it stronger and affected its strength. This way its damage dice would automatically be recalculated based on that new strength rather than still using that -1. I don't know, somebody gave it Gauntlets of Ogre Power or something crazy like that. So it's better practice to do it that way. Now we're going to just choose the type of damage this is. It's a fist attack. It's going to be bludgeoning damage. Now what's interesting with these creatures, same with the adults, is they do additional damage when they actually strike something. So I'm going to click this again, and you can see it just adds another line in, because these also do 1d4 poison damage. So when it hits, it's going to do d4 plus its strength modifier, bludgeoning damage, and it's going to do 1d4 poison damage. No modifier on the poison. So that's how we can stack these different types of damage. So you might be resistant to poison, you're still going to take the bludgeoning damage when it's rolled. You might have resistance to bludgeoning, but the poison's still going to have its full effect, etc. And because they're different types of damage, any damage mitigation through spells or Barbarian's Rage and things like that, they should be taken into account separately and not just rolled in together. So it's really good that you can do that in Foundry. Is it versatile damage? No, we're not using that. Other 4-minute? No. Does it cause a saving throw? No, it's just flat out poison damage. So that's our fist weapon done. What we can do, apparently, I've not actually done it before. Let's put a comment in there. So when one of these sprouts actually makes its attack, it should, in theory, according to this, put a message in the chat log. Don't know. Let's find out. We can put something in there and see what happens. So that's our fist attack. That's it. Nice and easy way to do it. Now we can also put in the very last thing we need to do is this rapport spores that it does. Now it's got it under actions because it takes an action to do. It's not really an attack though. So we're going to add a new one. We're going to edit just like we did before. And we're going to put in rapport spores, which is nice and alliterative, which is lovely. Now, are we going to go to details and fill in weapon stuff? Now for this, just to read you the description for the module, it creates a 10-foot radius of spores extending from the myconoid. These spores can go around corners and affect only creatures with an intelligence of 2 or higher that aren't undead, constructs or elementals. In other words, they've got to have a functioning brain. Affected creatures can communicate telepathically with one another while they are in 30 feet of each other. And the effect lasts for 1 hour. So there's no damage involved in this. There's no attack or anything like that. So we can completely ignore the details. I am going to copy that lot and put it in the description so I don't look at this later on in mid-game and go, what the heck are they? What do they do? So it's there. It's nice and easy to see, and we put it in. Now, there's a couple of different ways we could set this up. We could set it up with an aura of effect so that whenever we choose to use this feature, it creates automatically a 10-foot radius so we can see who's in it. I'm not sure if we can do that without mods, but let's give it a go. Let's see what happens. So under effects, when we use this is going to be a temporary effect. So we can add this in as a temporary effect for our rapport spores. We can edit this effect. What does this allow us to do? Whoa, this looks a bit more complicated. So some details. It looks like we can effect suspended, transfer effect to actor. So in that case, I guess if it was something like a poison field and they were in it, it would transfer that poison status over to the other character. But we don't really have a temporarily telepathically capable status that we can set. That's not a flag we can set. So that's probably not actually something that we need for this. So at the moment, this is not very useful for us. Duration, obviously we can set how long this lasts. Now it does say that this lasts for 1 hour. It's talking about turns, rounds, and things like that. I'm not sure how useful that is going to be. I think because you're not going to have a combat or something that lasts for an hour, so you're going to be tracking time separately anyway. And under effects, what do we have here? We have the ability to add in, gosh, all sorts of things that it can do. Now this is a bit more advanced. I don't know what I'm doing with this. I don't know how to say, so it looks like this is a tribute key. So is it going to affect charisma? It's going to add to charisma 2 or something, which is great, except we're not affecting any of our attributes. So this for us again is not very useful. So I'm going to just close that one. And it looks like we're going to end up with just our rapport spores as it is. Now, of course, for our characters, we could potentially create a whole new status effect. But to be honest, is that really going to be useful? I would say not, because you're much more likely to be using that telepathic ability in roleplay rather than combat situations. And it only lasts for an hour. So it might last long enough while you're dealing with the monsters at the end of this with the fire snake. But how useful is that going to be? Your players are going to be talking to each other anyway. So I think in this instance, actually just having it there so I know, oh yeah, that's right, that's one of the actions it can choose to use. So what's obviously one of the ways they would use this is they would use that so that they can communicate with the party. But of course it also makes those members of the party within 10 feet of it, when it does this burst, also be able to talk to each other. So it's any creature that has a functioning brain in there will get caught up with it and and be able to talk to each other telepathically. All right, so open this up again. One thing we didn't do, so we've got our character, we don't need a biography, we don't need these effects, we don't need a spell book, the casting spells. We've got their actions and things in here. We've already got their attributes. There's that 8 giving that -1, and we've put in their dark vision. There's nothing else to add to this. It's already got this proficiency bonus +2 just at the top here, if you can see. All we need to do is to update this picture, and I'm not sure that I already uploaded this one. Nope. So I'm going to choose from here, and I did just download and did a bit of a hunt and find some ones that I'm going to use for this. So that's my spore one. We'll use that. We can open, select our file, and there we've got our picture. So it's really not that difficult. You can see on the right hand side it's updated that. It's really not that difficult to do. I'm sure there's lots of spell effects and particular attacks that are quite complicated. And if you've got stuff that's being used repeatedly, you're going to want to set that up as a I've forgotten which tab it is. Set that up yourself in a compendium so that you've created that and it becomes a thing that you can just apply to multiple different creatures. I do know there's an add-on that makes that so much easier, as well as add-ons that will allow us to pull in further information of those things that already exists. We're not looking at add-ons just yet, but we will look at those specifically later on, because they do make life much, much easier, and doing it this way is just more difficult. Okay, so the last thing we need to do is to actually put these myconid sprouts on here. So there were 2, one down here, or 2 down here. Now I'm going to double right click on these. I'm going to say that I want the name to come up when I hover over it, and again I want to put the always on for the owner. You notice the bar disappeared straight away. It does that sometimes for whatever reason. So again, identity, when I hover over it, and resources, always for the owner. And again, the bar disappeared. So I've had this a couple of times. Just double click on it again. There we go. It re-shows it. It just doesn't seem to, it accepts it but doesn't show it the first time. So just double clicked on it again. Go back in. There we go. We've got our myconid sprouts. So were there any others? Yes, in the larder. This is the larder over here. There are 3 others in here. So we can drop these in as well. 1, 2. Now what if I double click, if I can, no, that's ownership, don't want to do that. What I wanted to see if I could do, and I can't, prototype token? Yes, I can. Right, okay. Let's step back. So let me get rid of those two for a moment. So if I double click on this to the character sheet and I update the prototype token, so this is the token for this one in the bank that will apply every time I deposit a token. At the moment, display name is never. I want it to be when hovered over by the owner, because I'm the owner as the DM. I can change things about its appearance, so all of their tokens. I can change their vision from here, their light from here, but what I want to do is to change this to always on for the owner, update that prototype token. Now in theory, when I drag these, it will, there we go, automatically bring in those settings that I've had. So if I was setting specific vision capabilities or tremor sense or something like that, or an aura around these creatures, I would only need to set that up once. I can drop it in, and as you can see, they've all got their hover ability on here. Now it does tell me that these are named characters. Oops. So what I want to do is I'm going to come in and change these tokens, and this one is Bispo. So hover over it, now says Bispo. This one is Valap, and this one is Popple. That's a nice name. I like that name, Popple. So again, when we hover over them, it shows us what their name is. We know what they are because of the icons are all the same, but you'll notice these, you know, we've got this white background on here. They're not the nicest tokens. Same for the adults. It's not the nicest token. It's nowhere near as nice as even just our square one here. Later on, we will look at a way of creating much nicer tokens using an add-on, but we ain't doing that today. Just want to go back to here because these two have probably got names as well. So let's just double check. This is, yeah, so Sprouts. That's Kraz. We didn't update this other adult here. What was the other adult? It was, so we had Kraz and Mollen. So let's update those. Under identity. So this sprout is called... oh, I've got them the wrong way around. The sprouts are called Mollen. And the... Whoops, back to identity. And the other sprout is called Kraz. Not that it ultimately matters, it's just going to confuse me in game if I get them wrong at this point. So Hibziz. That's a bit of a mouthful. It's a bit of, I have a slight lisp, you may have noticed. So names like that, they're not great for me. Ragoso. There we go. Okay, so we've given them names now, and when we hover over them, it shows us which is which. So of course, if the characters are up here, it can get confusing. Hang on, which one I'm talking to. I don't want to have to double click to open the character sheet to see which is which. It makes it much easier. And I know what they are by that icon. And worst case, I can flick to my actor's icon, look at my NPCs and go, oh, right. So the idea of this module is the myconoids are very concerned about what's going on in this cave, but they are effectively neutral. They're not automatically hostile. So I've set them as NPCs because what I want them, hopefully the players will work with the myconoids to find out what the problem is and cure it rather than charging in and fighting everything. So they're NPCs at the moment. Of course, if they do, you can still add NPCs to combat by clicking, is it this one here? You can see I've just toggled that combat state, and I can toggle them into combat if need to be, and they can still fight them. So it doesn't stop them fighting them at all, but it just reminds me that they should be, I'm storing them in here because they're supposed to be NPCs. Okay, right, so we added our 3 myconoid sprouts down here. Let's have a quick look in the larder, which is where we got those 3. The circle chamber, which is this one. There are 6 adults. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Who are you? I've got a stray. I've got a stray one. Let's get rid of that stray one. Don't know where that came from. All right, so we got rid of that. That's good. In the sanctum, we've got the 2 adults here who are tending to Sinenza, which is fine. And then we've got the Crystal Cave over here, which has our 2 fume drakes in it. Now, I think yeah, I've left them hidden because the idea is they're in this very smoky cave. So just to read you the description, the air in this cave is choked with thick smoke that assaults your nostrils with pungent odours of brimstone. Strange flickering orange light illuminates the smoke. So that's what I've got over here, some flickering lights. This area is free of fungal growth. Instead, crystals grow from the rock. To your right, a large cluster of purple crystals juts out from the stone. So I've tried to put a light on there just to make that kind of look like it's kind of glowing in amongst everything else. And in fact, because it does say about this is lacking, very specifically says it's lacking that fungal growth. Now remember, our lighting in this whole place is caused by this fungal growth that we set up with this ghostly light. So if I turn that off, that's going to make this much darker. I might just up that a bit. Forgot to keep forgetting to update light source. Because the idea is this will be darker because it's not lit by that fungus. So I'm going to get rid of that completely. So when they go in here, it's going to be smoky, but it's not going to be lit apart from being able to see these lights from here. So I wonder if, to make sure that they can, let's see what our character can see as we move her over here, as we move her up this way, because this is always the best way to check your work, is just move through. So look, even from here, we can't see what's in here because it's dark, but actually that purple light and the orange glow is bright enough that as our characters attempt to move into here, they can see that. So they are not going to be able to see the cave except where those lights are actually emanating from. So we're walking into darkness there. We're going to need to put a torch on or something. So that's kind of what I want. I want them to go, it's a really dark cave. There's some glowing stuff in there, but they can't see anything else. That's about perfect. What I think I do want to do for this bit, we've got, let's just check on the monsters. So we've got we've got our fume drake there, our fume drake there. And then we have our fire snake, not our constrictor. We've got our fire snake here. If they come in and they break this orange crystal, and because I've got it as a light source, if they break that crystal, I just turn the light off. It's shattered. It's not glowing anymore. It's not providing that little bit of illumination. So literally, if they say they're going to shatter it, I'm going to do this to turn that off. And then the fire snake comes out. I'm going to unhide it. Okay, so the idea is the crystal smashes, the fire snake comes out. So there's no other creatures or anything in here. Excuse me. So I think this is pretty much ready to go. I like these effects and everything. I think the only problem I've got, putting that light back on, is we're seeing through these rocks. So I'm going to go back to walls. I know we've kind of been here and it's like, really, we're doing more walls? Yes, we're doing more walls. Because I just want to make sure that these walls are capable of blocking light. I think it makes sense. The idea that something could be hiding behind them. I like to make my players slightly... I like them to be cautious rather than paranoid. Honest, it's not about making them paranoid. A little bit. I like them being a little bit paranoid. So let's check how that looks then. So at the moment, I really need to reset the fog of war. Let me move her out the way. Because she's obviously... I've already moved her through that area. So reset that fog of war. We can now see this light is being blocked here. So in theory, now when we move up here, look, we can see that there's orange glow, but we can't see past those rocks until we start to actually move into the area. Of course, players are either going to have dark vision and be fine anyway, or they're going to have to light a torch to be able to have a look round here. And by the time they get to this point, the fume drakes are on them. Alright, so I'm quite happy with that. I think this area is about as done as it can be for now. without using lots of other mods and stuff. I'm quite happy with that. That's all set up. As you probably remember, we put some of these descriptions in for these areas. Just get off of that. We did for the first two. We didn't for the others, as it won't double click open. These ones do because they're attached to a journal. This one's not attached to a journal. So to actually prep this, would I go into those and do it? I've got two monitors. I've got the adventure open on the other screen. I probably don't need to do that. I can read from directly from the adventure if I want to. But obviously any tweaks I make, rather than having another copy of the adventure that I've tweaked, I can literally tweak those in here, add a bit more description. It might be about sounds and things like that. But we've tried to put some of those sounds into the map to make it quite interesting. So I'm calling Seagrow Caves complete. Also, Compass Rose that we did quite a lot of work on, I think that's complete as well. We put lights and sounds, we played around with that a bit. And this one is also complete. So the question is, what's the next thing to do? So we've got two different areas left that we haven't covered. Oh, my voice went up. So if you recall, there were three main locations. So the wreck of the Compass Rose, which we've just done, Seagrow Caves, and there's the Clifftop Observatory, as well as the Dragon's Rest, the main town they start with. So we haven't done the Clifftop Observatory yet. If we go to our scenes, we haven't even got it on here. So before we end this video, let's go and create that map, and then that's ready for next time. And I think in the next one, what we'll try and do is just try and whiz through and get everything in that set up quite quickly, because you've seen the process now. I'm getting quicker at it. I know what I'm doing. It's easier to set up lights. I won't talk you through everything, because at some point you will get bored of just listening to me. All right, so creating a new scene. This is the Clifftop Observatory. Brilliant. I can spell today. That's good. And as we know, it brings up immediately when we create a scene. Permissions, showing navigation, yes, but only for the game master. I'm happy with that. I want my background image. Certainly not going to be in my image tokens. I want it in my maps. And it looks like I already uploaded it. So I'm going to select that file. Let's bring that in and just check that that is correct and what we want. View that scene. Here it is. So what I want to be slightly cautious of is a few things with this one. First of all, let's configure it a bit more. Let's see what we need to do. Do we want a foreground image? No. Background color, not worried about. Foreground color, foreground elevation, not worried about. That's all fine. Happy with that. We do need to sort out the grid. Do you remember the fun of doing the grids? So we can see that our grid is not aligned. So I'm going to change my grid size to start with, and just like before, because it makes it so much easier, I'm going to make that grid red. Yes, I'm going to save that. So now we can see the grids do not line up. And we know that this is the bit that takes a little bit of time. So let's see if we can sort this out first. Okay, so remembering our controls, well, use Alt and mouse wheel. No, sorry, Shift and mouse wheel. Silly boy. Shift and mouse wheel and Shift up down arrow keys to change the grid size. So if I line this up, so I'm looking at this square at the moment, we can see we're quite a bit bigger. So our red VTT grid is quite a bit bigger than the map grid. So we need to make the map grid bigger. So zooming in, and you can see the background image scale, we want that number going up because we want those squares to get bigger and bigger. Now, doing it with the mouse takes a bit, so I'm going to try a 1.2, see how that is. Let's try line one up. That's not too far off already, is it? That's a pretty good guess. So again, I'm looking at this square here. We're not meeting there. We needs to go up a bit further. What if I do 1.25? Always resets it, of course, just to really annoy me. much closer. So we're looking at this one here, it's pretty close, but as we get further away it gets worse. So I'm wondering if jumping to 1.3, if that's going to be a bit better for us. I'm just going to move this window down a little bit, give a slightly better view. So looking at this square here, it looks really good. When I look further away over here, that still looks good, that still looks good. Let's zoom out, because what we would like to see is that this over here is perfectly matched, which it seems to be. That's better. It seems to be perfectly matched over here. But if they're the same grid size, they would also be perfectly matched over here. And they're not quite, are they? It needs to be a touch bigger. But it's really not much. It's really not much at all. See, that might be it. Because again, that looks perfect there. It's not perfect over here anymore. So again, that looks good. Over here, slightly off. 1.35 maybe. Again, just using the arrow keys now just to get those to line up. That looks like that's lined up over here. It's off down there, so I do need to make it... Hang on a minute. Just looking at this, I need to make it a bit smaller, I think. I think 1.3 was about as good as we're going to get. Now remember the reds, we're going to get rid of the red square. That's fine. Yeah, do you know what? That's close enough. That is absolutely close enough. So when we've got tokens on over here, they're going to sit within the red squares, which is pretty much going to match up with those. And if they're over here on the bank, they're going to match up with the red square, which is pretty much the same as the map grid there. I'm going to save changes. I think that is absolutely good enough to have as is, which is great. And because I don't want to see both grids at the same time, I'm going to turn the opacity down of our VTT grid. It's still there. We can still drop the tokens into it and move them around within that grid. It just doesn't, it's not visible because we've got these map lines on the image rather than on the VTT. Okay, so we've done the basics. We're now happy with the grid. Doesn't matter about grid color because we've made it invisible anyway. What about lighting? Do we want token vision? Yes, we do. Always want token vision for scenes where combat might happen. Fog exploration, yes I do. Don't need any particular masks for that. Global illumination. So are we going to have this whole place completely lit? I'm going to click that on. Now obviously some of these places are indoors, so I wouldn't want them to be globally lit. So I suspect global illumination is the wrong thing to do here, but I want to put that on and see what happens when we put the walls in, if that makes a difference or not. In the next video, the chances are I'll forget that I put global illumination on and I'll be kicking myself when I'm trying to play around with lighting. We don't need to worry about the darkness level, global illumination threshold, but what about ambience? Not a journal entry. Scene set list. We've had a little play with that before. We're not going to do that. But we might put on a weather effect. So let's see what storm rain looks like. Woof. Well, that's fairly full on, isn't it? And not necessarily inappropriate, but it could be a little bit distracting. I think maybe we'll put just normal rain on for this. And we'll just leave it with normal rain for now. Obviously, it depends on, you know, the characters might choose to go at night and all sorts of things like that. Or they might come back a different time of year and you go, well, actually, I want to put fog. I want to make sure it's foggy. They're out in the morning mists and things. You might want to change that. Nothing wrong with that. See, bit of sea fog makes perfect sense. I'm personally going to stick with a bit of rain. Right, so that's kind of all we're going to do, just get this set up. Now, one of the things we are going to need to contemplate next time is obviously we're going to put walls in around these places where there are walls. These bits here are bridges that appear when the characters actually do something. So I don't have a token on here. Let me go to my tokens. Let me drop my test player on here. There she goes, fits perfectly into there. Now obviously without walls and things you can just wander off into the sea. That's not going to be a thing. but characters might try and just walk straight across this bridge thinking it's a bridge. It's not a bridge. It's where the bridge will appear when they put in well, they've got to find a key, and when they insert the key into one of these pillars, it creates this bridge for them. So that's going to be a bit of a challenge, is how are we going to deal with that? How are we going to make sure that they can't cross this until we do so? Obviously, as a DM, you know, we can just control and go, oh, no, there's no bridge there, you can't see anything. But there might be another way to do it. It might be something to do with, you know, we end up putting a wall in so that they can't cross it, and then do something snazzy with that. We don't want to restrict light. We don't want to restrict sight. We don't want to restrict sound, because it's not actually that. But we might choose to say that it restricts movement, stops them walking through it. Or we might choose to make the whole thing a door or something. Yeah, we could do that. We could do that. And then, oops, I don't want to put a wall there, do I? Don't do that. And then our token, in theory, for players would not be able to walk through that unless they've unlocked the door. So do we want them thinking of it as a door, though? Do we want them kind of be that obvious? I mean, the problem is the map's got this on it, so it kind of gives away what they need to do. And it gives away that there's a way of doing this, you know. So in an ideal world, we would use a map that doesn't show this on it, bearing in mind this is supposed to be the player's map anyway. But that's one way we could do that. So we'll have a think about it and decide if that's what we want to do or not. For now, I'm going to delete that. Okay, so we are almost, well, we're about halfway through the entire creation of the adventure without any add-ons. So yeah, we're getting there. Now this should be relatively quick to do, because we've done everything else that we need to do before, the lights, the sounds, the walls and everything else. The next video, we're just going to crack on, smash it out the park, get this one done, chuck in all the bits that we need to, and then we can move on to Dragon's Rest, which is a village that's going to have a lot more things going on. We're going to have lots of vendors, lots of NPCs and stuff like that we will have a look at and sort out. But again, that shouldn't take too long, because a lot of that's role play rather than setting up monsters for fighting, we hope. Never know what the players are going to do. Thank you very much for watching this video, especially if you've got this far. Please do leave a like, leave a comment, tell me what you like, what you don't like, any ideas you've got, anything you would like to see us try. Let us know. That would be really, really useful, and subscribe to the channel would be great, and then obviously you'll be notified of the next video. Thank you very much, take care, and we'll see you in the next one.